always thought rock bottom would look different. Maybe darker, maybe lonelier. But turns out, rock bottom is standing in the kitchen, still holding a mug of cold coffee, while your stepmother screams your name from the floor. And your dad, who's supposed to protect you, just stares at the TV upstairs. My name's Jason, 23, and for as long as I can remember, my stepmom Carol has hated my existence. She'd humiliate me at every family dinner, snatch plates from my hands to teach me manners, roll her eyes so hard they nearly left orbit. My dad? His favorite phrase, just let it go, son. So I let it go. Again. And again. Until last Thursday night. It started the same as every Thursday. Carol cooked, which meant dry chicken and a generous side of insults. Dad scrolled his phone while I quietly chewed through cardboard. Carol shot me the usual looks of disgust. But then, mid-rant about how lazy boys like me never become real men, her face twisted. For a moment, I thought it was just another sneer. Then she clutched her stomach, gasped, and dropped to the floor, curling in on herself like a dying spider. I froze. My dad barely looked up. "Carol," he called, almost annoyed, like she'd interrupted a boring sitcom. She reached for me. "Jason, help." I didn't move. All those years she'd used my name only to spit it out like poison, and now it was the lifeline she clung to. My heart thudded painfully, but something darker whispered in my chest. "Why should I?" Dad finally lumbered over but only stood there, blinking. "She says it's bad," I muttered. "Call an ambulance then," Dad sighed, sounding exhausted, not urgent. But Carol's fingers clawed at my jeans. "No, drive me. Please. Quicker." Her voice was barely a croak, but the desperation was raw. I could have said no. God knows part of me wanted to. But my legs moved on autopilot. I grabbed the car keys. "Dad, are you coming?" He shook his head. "I'll follow." "You go." "Follow." He never did. I half-carried Carol to the car. Her weight felt like years of hate pressing into my shoulder. My chest tightened, but I kept my face cold. She whimpered. "I'm sorry." So soft I nearly missed it. "Seatbelt," I snapped. Her eyes glistened with something I'd never seen before. Real fear. Or maybe regret. I drove, tires squealing as we shot into the night. Carol sobbed, clutching her stomach, gasping my name like a prayer. And for the first time I realized something that almost made me pity her. She truly thought I'd leave her to die. A mile in, she blurted out. "I didn't mean to be so cruel. Your dada asked me to be hard on you. Said it'd toughen you up." My knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. "What?" "I swear, Jason. It was him. Two went too far. But it was him." My mind spun so fast it hurt. All these years, Dad's silence wasn't just weakness. It was design. "Why are you telling me now?" I hissed. "I'm scared," she whimpered. "And two do love you in my way." I almost laughed. The bitter sound died in my throat. "Hold on," I said, voice shaking. The ER sign glowed ahead like salvation. I screeched into the bay, ran for help. Nurses swarmed the car, loading Carol onto a gurney. And then I was left standing alone in the cold lot, chest heaving, memories spinning like razors. A nurse touched my arm. "Are you family?" I hesitated. "Stepson," I muttered. "Sit inside, Han. We'll update you." Inside, the fluorescent lights felt like judgment. My phone buzzed. "Dad." One text. "How is she?" Nothing else. "No thank you, son." "No, are you okay?" A nurse appeared. "Your stepmother needs surgery. We need consent if your father can't be reached quickly." I blinked. "Me? You're here. Are you willing?" My heart clenched. "Yeah," I breathed. She nodded, rushing off. I sank into a plastic chair. And for the first time, I asked myself a question I'd never dared before. What kind of father makes someone else his weapon? The waiting room clock ticked. Dad finally showed up, slower than traffic. He barely met my eyes. "Doctor says it was a perforated ulcer," he muttered. "She'll live." I nodded. "She told me, Dad. About you." His face barely twitched. "What did she tell you exactly?" "That you told her to be cruel. To toughen me up." He exhaled, almost annoyed. "You were always soft, Jason. I thought it'd help." "Help?" I whispered. My voice felt brittle. "You let her break me." His gaze was flat. You're still standing, aren't you? That twist of pride in his tone nearly made me gag. At that moment, Carol was behind glass doors fighting for her life, and the man who claimed to love us both stood here without a shred of guilt. I got up. You know what, Dad? I hope she makes it. But don't ever ask me to come back home. He didn't follow. I walked outside. The night smelled like rain and relief. My phone buzzed again, a text from an unknown number. I meant it, Jason. I'm sorry. Carol. My thumb hovered. For the first time I had power. I could answer. Or not. I typed back. Get well. Then I deleted it. I put the phone away and walked to my car, heart pounding, finally breathing for real. And that was only the beginning. I thought walking out of that hospital would feel like freedom, but it felt more like stepping into a bigger, darker cage, one where the bars were made of memories I couldn't forget and truths I didn't want to face. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles burned. Dad was somewhere behind those walls, probably pacing cold hallways and blaming the world for making his life inconvenient. And Carol, well, she was fighting pain that I wouldn't wish on anyone. Even her. My phone buzzed again, lighting up the dark. Another text from that unknown number. Jason, please. I need to explain. Part of me wanted to throw the phone out the window, but a deeper part, the part that still needed answers, needed something to make sense, couldn't let it go. I typed back. Not now. And I drove. Where? I didn't know. The roads were half empty at this hour, slick with fresh rain. Streetlights turned the asphalt into rivers of gold. My mind kept replaying what Carol had said in the car. Your dad asked me to be hard on you. Said it'd toughen you up. Was it true? Could she have twisted it to save herself? But the look in Dad's eyes when I confronted him, it wasn't shock. It was annoyance, like I dared to open a closet he'd kept locked for years. I ended up in front of an all-night diner, neon sign buzzing. I hadn't eaten since lunch, but food was the last thing on my mind. I went inside anyway. The place was nearly empty. A trucker at the counter, an old couple sharing pie in silence. I slid into a booth and ordered coffee I knew I wouldn't drink. My reflection stared back at me in the greasy window. Messy brown hair, tired eyes, an expression somewhere between rage and grief. Long night, a voice said. I turned. A woman stood by my booth, maybe in her late 40s. She had kind eyes and wore an apron that said Marlene. You could say that, I muttered. She set down the mug. Anything you want to talk about? I almost laughed. Talk? With a stranger? But then again, strangers sometimes listen better than family. My stepmother's in surgery, I heard myself say. And my dad, well, he's not really a dad. Marlene slid into the booth opposite me, apron rustling. That sounds rough, sweetheart. What happened? And before I knew it, the words spilled out. About Carol. About years of silent dinners and cruel jokes. About Dad's cold eyes. About what Carol confessed in the car. Marlene listened without interrupting, just nodding. When I finally stopped, my throat dry, she spoke softly. You know, she said. Sometimes people hurt us because they're hurting too. Doesn't make it right. Doesn't make it your job to forgive them either. I don't even know if she meant it, I whispered. Or if it was just fear talking. Maybe it was both, Marlene said. But what matters now is what you do next. I nodded, staring into the untouched coffee. What if I don't even know who I am without all that? Without their hate? She smiled, sad and gentle. Then maybe it's time to find out. Her words stuck with me. When I left the diner, dawn was cracking over the horizon. I hadn't slept, but I felt strangely awake. My phone buzzed again. This time a call. From Carol's number. I answered, heart pounding. Jason. Her voice was weak, raw. They say I'll be okay. That's good, I said, voice flat. I know you don't owe me anything, she whispered. But can you come? I need to tell you the rest. Part of me wanted to hang up. But curiosity and something softer, I didn't want to name one. I'll come by, I said. At the hospital, the halls were quieter. The nurses nodded at me. Maybe they remembered me from the night before. Carol was pale, tubes in her arm, eyes sunken but clearer than I'd ever seen. I didn't lie, she said as soon as I Saturday about your dad. But there's more. I swallowed. What more? She took a breath that seemed to hurt. He told me you reminded him of your mother. Too soft, too gentle. It made him angry. Not at you, at her memory. So he wanted you hardened. My chest burned. And you agreed? I thought it was love, she said, voice cracking. I thought I was helping him and you. But I see now I just became what he wanted. And it made me hate myself. And you. For the first time I saw the woman behind the cruelty. A woman who'd built her worth on pleasing a man who couldn't love anyone fully. Why tell me now? I asked. Because I might have died last night, she whispered. And I couldn't go without you knowing it wasn't all your fault. None of it was. I wanted to scream that it didn't change anything, that the scars were still there. But my voice came out small. Thank you for telling me. Her eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry, Jason. Truly. I stood. Rest. We can talk more later. She nodded, sinking back into the pillow. Outside her room, I nearly collided with someone. Jason. It was a woman I barely recognized at first, shoulder-length gray hair. Glasses, worry lines etched deep. Then it clicked. Aunt Linda. My mother's sister. Linda. I croaked. I heard about Carol, she said. I came as soon as I could. How are you? No one had asked me that and meant it in years. The words unlocked something. I don't know, I whispered. She hugged me, and for a moment I felt 8 years old again, safe and unseen by Dad's disappointment. I've been meaning to call you, she said. But your father discouraged it. Why? I asked, anger creeping in. Because I was the last piece of your mother you had left, Linda said softly. And he didn't want that reminder around. My heart stuttered. He tried to erase her? Linda nodded, pain in her eyes. He loved her, Jason. But when she died, that love curdled into guilt and anger. And you were the living reminder he couldn't bear. The puzzle pieces slammed together so hard it hurt. Carol wasn't the start of my pain. Dad was. Always had been. I'm so sorry, sweetheart, Linda whispered. You didn't deserve any of it. My throat burned. Will you stay a while? Of course, she said. As long as you want. We sat in the waiting room, the early sunlight painting the floor gold. For the first time I told Linda everything. And she listened, really listened, not to judge but to understand. When I finished, she wiped her eyes. You're stronger than you know, Jason. And you don't have to carry their damage anymore. I don't even know where to start, I whispered. With one choice at a time, she said gently. And so I made one. I wasn't going back to Dad's house. Not even to pack. Linda offered to help me find somewhere to stay, a friend's empty apartment she could rent me short-term. As we walked to her car, my phone buzzed again. This time, Dad. I let it ring. And ring. Then it stopped. Linda drove in silence, her presence calm and solid beside me. The city rolled by, strangely beautiful in the morning light. At the apartment, she handed me the keys. Stay as long as you need, she said. And Jason, you don't owe your father anything. Not forgiveness, not answers. I know, I whispered. But I think I still need to tell him I'm done. She nodded. If you're ready. Do it for you, not him. That afternoon I finally answered his call. Where the hell have you been? He barked before I could speak. Away, I said calmly. And I'm not coming back. Don't be dramatic, Dad scoffed. Carol's coming home soon. We'll go back to normal. There is no normal, Dad, I said. My voice barely shook. I know everything. What you told her to do. How you erased Mom. Silence. Heavy, dangerous silence. You're twisting things, he said finally. I did what I had to. You were too soft. No, Dad. I was kind. And that scared you. You're throwing away your family, he hissed. You threw it away first, I whispered. Goodbye, Dad. I ended the call before he could speak again. And for the first time the air felt lighter. That night I slept for 12 hours straight. No nightmares. Just rest. In the days that followed, Carol texted a few times, short, hesitant messages. I hope you're okay. I'd like to talk when you're ready. And Linda was there every step, helping me build a life that was mine alone. But the past wasn't done with me yet. A week later I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single photograph. Me as a baby in my mother's arms. And on the back, in handwriting I didn't recognize. You were always loved. My hand shook. Who sent this? Carol? Linda? Someone else? I showed Linda. She traced the words with her finger, eyes misty. That's your mother's handwriting, she whispered. My chest felt like it might burst. How did it get here? I don't know, Linda said. But maybe someone wanted you to remember the truth before it was too late. And just like that, the story I thought was finished cracked open again, revealing deeper shadows and maybe somewhere light. For hours I just stared at that photo. It was like holding a ghost. The baby in my mother's arms looked so peaceful, so safe, so oblivious to everything that would come. And her handwriting, you were always loved, felt like a hand reaching across time to pull me back from a cliff I didn't even realize I was standing on. Linda stayed silent, letting me process. Finally I whispered, "Why now? Why after all this time?" She shook her head. "Maybe your father kept this hidden. Maybe Carol found it. Or someone else wanted you to see it before it was too late." The thought chilled me. Who else even knew enough about my past to do this? That night I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes I saw my mother's face in that photo, blurred at the edges by memory and tears. In the morning I decided to go back to the house. Not to stay. Not even to confront Dad again. But to find the truth. Linda offered to come, but I knew I had to do it alone. When I parked outside the house, the place felt smaller somehow, almost fragile. Dad's car was in the driveway. I took a deep breath and walked up the steps. The door opened before I could knock. Dad stood there, looking older than I'd ever noticed. His eyes flicked over Muri, defensive. "What do you want?" he snapped. "To get my things," I said quietly. "And to ask about this." I held up the photo. His face paled. "Where did you get that?" "It was mailed to me," I said. "Why? Did you hide it?" For a second, something like shame flashed across his face, but it hardened quickly into anger. "That photo should have stayed buried," he muttered. "Why, Dad? Why would you bury proof that she loved me?" My voice cracked on the last word. "Because it didn't help," he shouted suddenly, voice shaking. "After she died, it didn't matter how much she'd loved you. It wouldn't bring her back. And every time I saw your face, I saw her. And I couldn't do it." I took a shaky breath. "So you tried to erase her and turned me into the enemy." He looked away, jaw tight. "It was easier to be angry than to be broken." His words cut deeper than I expected. "You could have chosen love," I whispered. "But you didn't." "I know," he rasped. His shoulders slumped. "And I don't expect forgiveness." "I'm not ready to give it," I said. "I'm here to pack. That's all." He nodded, stepping aside. "Your room's as you left it." As I climbed the stairs, I realized my hands were trembling. That house held too many ghosts. In my room, dust lay thick over everything. School trophies, old books, a broken watch Mom had given me. I started packing slowly, but something made me stop and pull the bottom drawer out completely. At the very back, taped under the drawer, was a small envelope. My name in the same handwriting from the photo. Heart hammering, I opened it. "Jason, my sweet boy," it began. "If you're reading this, it means I couldn't stay. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from the world or even from the ones who should have loved you most. But please remember, you were born from love. And that love lives in you even when I'm gone." I sat down hard on the floor, tears blurring the words. All these years I thought no one had truly loved me. But she had. And she tried to leave me something to hold on to. When I finally stood, the letter clutched in my hand, I felt lighter somehow. Like part of the weight I'd carried had never really belonged to me. I packed the last box and went downstairs. Dad stood in the hallway, staring at the wall. "I found her letter," I said quietly. His eyes flickered. "I couldn't bring myself to burn it," he admitted, voice hoarse. "Thank you," I whispered, "for not destroying that last piece of her." We stood in silence until I picked up the box. "I'm staying with Linda," I said. "I don't know if I'll be back." He nodded stiffly. "Take care, Jason." It wasn't reconciliation. But maybe it was a start to something that wasn't pure hate. At Linda's, I showed her the letter. She cried, hugging me so tightly it hurt. "She always loved you so fiercely," Linda whispered. "And she'd be so proud you survived." "Survived," I repeated softly. "But I don't just want to survive anymore." She smiled. Then let's help you learn to live. In the following days, I let myself grieve not just for Mom, but for the boy I could have been if I'd grown up differently. I also answered Carol's texts at last. We can meet for coffee, I wrote. But just to talk. We met at a quiet cafe. She looked thinner, paler, her hands shaking slightly. Thank you for coming, she murmured. I want to understand, I said. Not to excuse, but to understand. She nodded. I don't even fully understand why I did what I did. At first, it felt like loyalty to your father. Then it became resentment because no matter how cruel I was, he still looked at you like you were hers, not ours. And I hated that part of myself. Her honesty surprised me. Why didn't you stop? I asked. I was afraid, she whispered. Afraid he'd leave me. Afraid to face what I'd become. I let her words hang in the air. I'm not sure if I can forgive you, I said truthfully. I know, she said. But I needed you to know I do regret it. Deeply. And for the first time, I saw her not just as the villain of my story but as a deeply broken person, shaped by fear and weakness. That didn't erase what she did, but it made her human. Before leaving, I gave her back the photo. If you were the one who mailed it, thank you. She shook her head. It wasn't me. But I'm glad you have it. I frowned. If not her and not Dad, who? That question haunted me as days turned to weeks. One evening, Linda suggested. Maybe it was someone outside the family, someone who cared about your mother. It clicked. Mom had a best friend, someone I barely remembered. Her name was Grace. With Linda's help, I tracked her down. Grace Turner, living 2 towns over. I called first, nervous, voice cracking. I'm Jason, Laura's son. Pause, then a soft, surprised laugh. Oh my God, Jason. I've thought about you so often. Are you all right? Mostly, I said. I got something in the mail. A photo in my mom's letter. Was that you? It was, she admitted. I kept them safe all these years. When I heard about Carol's illness from an old neighbor, I thought it was finally time. Thank you, I whispered, voice breaking. I wanted you to know you were always loved, she said gently. Your mother made me promise to give them to you one day, but your father kept me away. Would you meet me? I asked. I'd love that, she said. We met at a small park. Grace was older than I remembered, silver hair and soft wrinkles, but the warmth in her eyes was unchanged. She hugged me, and it felt like coming home to a place I didn't know I'd lost. Your mother was the bravest person I knew, Grace said. And you have her kindness. Don't let them take that from you. I told her about the letter, the photo, even about Carol and Dad. She listened quietly, then said, It's not your job to fix them, but you can heal yourself. I'm trying, I whispered. And that's enough, she said, squeezing my hand. As we parted, she pressed something into my palm. She wanted you to have this too. It was a small locket, tarnished with age. Inside, a tiny photo of Mom holding me and a scrap of paper. My heart is yours always. I held it to my chest, tears streaming. Thank you, I whispered. That night, for the first time, I dreamed of Mom not sick, not dying, but laughing in sunlight, holding me close. And I realized healing wasn't about forgetting the pain. It was about letting the love speak louder. Back at Linda's, I started therapy. It wasn't easy. Talking about the years of cruelty felt like tearing open old wounds. But slowly, the wounds began to clean out, to close. One morning, I got a call from Dad. Hesitant, almost frightened. Jason, can we talk? He asked. I don't know, I admitted. I'm not ready to come back. I don't want you to, he said quietly. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I don't know if I can forgive you, I whispered. I know, he said. But I needed to say it anyway. Thank you, I managed. We hung up and I sat staring at the phone, heart pounding. It wasn't closure. But maybe it was the first stone in a new foundation. In the weeks that followed Dad's apology, life settled into something close to peace. I still had nightmares, but they grew softer around the edges. Linda, patient as dawn, helped me unpack not just my boxes but my memories. We turned her spare room into something of my own. A desk by the window, a battered armchair from a thrift store, the locket and the letter framed on the wall. One afternoon, as summer bled into fall, Linda knocked gently on my door. You've been quiet lately, she said, sitting across from me. I've been thinking, I admitted, about forgiveness, about what it really means. And, she prompted, I don't think forgiveness means saying what they did was okay, I said. It's letting go of the hold it still has over me. Linda nodded. Exactly. But I'm scared, I whispered. If I let go of the anger, what's left? Maybe room for something new, she said softly. Her words haunted me. I began writing letters, one to Dad, one to Carol, and one to the boy I used to be. I didn't send them, but each word felt like a brick lifted off my chest. To Dad I wrote, You failed me. You saw me hurt and turned away. But I see now you were drowning too. I'm not ready to forgive, but I'm ready to stop carrying your guilt as my own. To Carol, Your cruelty shaped me, but it doesn't define me. I hope you find peace with what you did, but my peace no longer depends on you. And to my younger self, I'm sorry it took so long for someone to fight for you, but you survived. And now you get to live. Writing those letters cracked something open inside me. A few days later, Linda and I sat on the porch, sipping coffee as leaves drifted from the trees. Do you ever wish things had been different? I asked. All the time, she admitted. But then I remember, if they had been, we wouldn't be here now. I thought about that. About how pain had built walls around my heart, but also carved out the deepest places where love could finally root. That evening, I got another call from Grace. Jason, she said, voice trembling slightly. Carol, she's in the hospital again. They're not sure she'll make it. She asked to see you. My heart twisted. Part of me wanted to say no. But another part whispered, You've already survived her. You don't have to be afraid anymore. I'll come, I said. At the hospital, the halls smelled like antiseptic and regret. I found Carol in a private room, smaller than she had ever seemed. Her skin was pale, her breathing shallow. She opened her eyes. Jason, she rasped. I'm here, I said, voice low. I don't deserve it, she whispered. But thank you. I swallowed. Why did you want to see me? I wanted to say, she gasped. I was wrong. I was so wrong. And I'm sorry. For a moment, the boy inside me wanted to scream, to rage at her for years of hurt. But the man I'd become just saw an old woman, broken by her own choices. I know, I said quietly. I don't forgive you. But I don't hate you anymore. Her eyes filled with tears. That's more than I deserve. Goodbye, Carol, I whispered. She died 3 days later. At her funeral, Dad stood beside me, shoulders hunched with guilt. When the service ended, he turned to me. Thank you, he said simply. I nodded. For what? For being better than I ever was, he murmured. I didn't reply. But for the first time, I saw my father not as the man who failed me but as someone who'd spent decades punishing himself more than anyone else could. In the weeks that followed, something inside me softened. Dad and I met for coffee sometimes. We didn't talk about the past often, but when we did, it was honest. One evening, he surprised me. I've been going to therapy, he said, almost embarrassed. That's good, I said. I kept waiting for you to fix things, he admitted. But I realized it's my work to do. That means a lot, I whispered. And strangely, I meant it. Linda and Grace remained my anchors. One Saturday, Grace brought me an old photo album Mom had left with her. We sat on Linda's porch turning pages, my mother laughing at a beach, holding me as a baby, kissing my forehead. Every photo felt like a new thread in the tapestry of who I was. She really loved you, Grace murmured. I know now, I said softly. And that changes everything. I started to volunteer at a local youth center, mentoring kids who'd been through rough homes. One boy, Malik, reminded me painfully of myself, sharp-eyed, quick-tongued, but always bracing for hurt. One afternoon after basketball, he asked, Why do you come here? You don't even know us. I know what it feels like, I said, to think no one cares. He looked away, voice cracking. It sucks. Yeah, I said. But it doesn't have to stay that way. He didn't reply. But a week later, he showed up early, waiting for me. That felt like the first crack of sunlight in someone else's storm. Months passed. Fall turned to winter. One cold December night, Dad called. Jason, he said, voice shaking. Could you come over? I'd like to show you something. At the house, he led me to the attic somewhere I hadn't dared go since childhood. Dust hung thick in the air. He opened an old trunk and took out something wrapped in cloth. It was a quilt hand-stitched. My mother made this, Dad said. For your crib. After your mom died, I couldn't stand to look at it. He ran a trembling hand over the faded fabric. I thought maybe you should have it. I swallowed hard, touched beyond words. Thank you, Dad, I whispered. We stood in silence, the past heavy around us but somehow a little lighter than before. On Christmas Eve, Linda and Grace joined us for dinner. It was the first meal we'd shared, truly shared, without walls. At the end, Dad raised his glass, voice rough. To Laura. And to second chances. We clinked glasses. And in that moment, I felt something unfamiliar. Not the ghost of what could have been, but gratitude for what was. In the spring, I visited my mother's grave, quilt folded under my arm. I sat cross-legged, telling her everything. About Carol, about Dad, about the boy at the youth center. And finally I whispered, I'm okay, Mom. Really? The breeze stirred the grass as if she were answering. Life didn't become perfect. I still carried scars, both seen and unseen. But the difference was they didn't feel like chains anymore. More like reminders of what I'd survived and what I could build from the ruins. At night I sometimes touched the locket, feeling its weight, remembering her words. My heart is yours always. And I realized, love doesn't erase the pain. It holds it, softens it, makes it bearable. Years later, on a warm summer morning, I stood outside the youth center, watching Malik graduate high school. He caught my eye in the crowd, smiling shyly, pride shining through old fear. In that moment I understood. Healing doesn't end. It ripples outward through every life we touch, every kindness we choose, every chance we take to love, even when it hurts. If you had asked me years ago, I'd have sworn my story was only about pain. But now, standing here, I see the truth. It's also about grace. About imperfect fathers and broken mothers and sons who keep choosing hope. About the letters we write to the past, and the futures we dare to build anyway. And maybe most of all, it's about this simple, stubborn miracle. That even when love is buried under years of silence and hurt, can still find its way back to us. And we can still choose every day to live like we believe it was always there.